Welcome to the Life and Reflection Texture Masters webinar. I'm so excited that you're joining me today to learn all about using photo textures with your images. We are going to go from easy to intermediate to advanced with our lessons today in this webinar. So if you're a newbie to photo textures, do not worry, we're going to walk through each and every step. The techniques that we're going to learn today apply to any version of Photoshop and Adobe Elements. When working in Adobe Photoshop, we want to have our Move tool selected, and we also want to have Show Transform Control selected. And then the next thing you want is you want to be able to see your layers palette. So no matter what software you're working in, if you select Windows and check mark Layers, the Layers palette will pop open for you. This first photo, we're going to apply a texture to bring out this gorgeous color. The first texture we're working with is from the Texture Masters Volume 2 collection, titled Innocence Cool. It has beautiful cool tones as well as golden highlights. To place the texture on your image, again, making sure your Move tool is selected, you're simply going to drag it on top of the image, place it in a corner, and with your Show Transform Control selected, you're going to drag it across the image and double click to set. Now we're going to move to the Layers palette. In the Layers palette, this top box here is full of blending modes, and next to it is the opacity bar. The opacity decides on what level or what percentage of the texture will be viewed over your image, and the blending mode describes how it's going to apply to your image. If it's going to darken your image, lighten your image, saturate your image, desaturate your image, all of those types of things. We're going to saturate the color in this image, so we're going to choose Overlay as our blending mode. Now it's a little bit bright, so now we're going to move to that opacity bar, and we're simply going to slide that down until we have just a little bit of more saturation there, but we can still see all this gorgeous texture. So here we go, before and after. Isn't that beautiful and so easy? In this lesson, you're going to see how quick and easy it is to apply a sepia finish to a color photograph using photo textures. This is 17 Warm, and it is from the Texture Masters Volume 2, and it has a beautiful soft finish and a lovely glow for creating sepia photographs. We're going to drag and drop it over the image, place it in a corner, and pull it across. And double click to set. Then we're going to come back to our Layers palette in the blending mode, and we're going to choose Color. Now we're going to go back to that opacity bar, and we're going to reduce it just a little. Now what's really neat is you can actually bring this down if you want to get kind of that old-fashioned brushwork look where it's sort of color, sort of black and white sort of thing, but today we're just going to do the sepia. I think that gives a really beautiful finish. I want to share a tip with you for choosing photos to work with textures. You want to choose photos that have a blurred background, like this image, a macro photo where the background is blurred. Or you want a photo that has a lot of sky. This gives you kind of a blank canvas to work with. If you have a very busy background, texture can kind of get lost on there and seem like too much. So I hope this tips helped you when choosing photos to use with textures. I'm excited to teach you this next lesson. We're going to be applying two textures, and then we're going to be using a really neat tool in Photoshop to brush away texture. So let's start with the Georgiana Peach texture. This texture has beautiful tones of peach and lime and many brush strokes. So it's going to add a really nice soft finish to the photo. So from the Layers palette, you want to select the Soft Light Blending mode. Now if you love Shabby Chic, then you'll love this texture because that's the finish that it gives. It's just really soft and beautiful. But for this lesson, we want to go ahead and add a little more saturation to the image. So we're going to add the Dreamsicle texture from the Artist Volume 5 collection. And you'll notice that the textures that we're using in this lesson, they are large scale textures. So you may have to make them smaller to fit your image, and that's okay too. This texture, we want to apply the Color Burn blending mode. The Color Burn always gives a very beautiful saturation to images. Now that's more than I would like on this image, so we're going to go to that opacity bar and reduce the opacity of the texture. There we go. So now you kind of have a nice lemon finish. Now what I want to point out for this next step is what happens if you have a texture and you love the hue or saturation that it gives the image, but say you don't like the edge. On this texture I made it with handmade paper, and then I added smudges of orange paint. Well, that looks really beautiful on a fall image, but I don't think it's really fitting for this one. But I still love this beautiful lemon color it gives. So what can we do? We can brush away those orange smudges. We can do that by adding a layer mask to the texture. And then you want to select black as your foreground color, and then a brush. And you want that brush to be somewhere between 200 and 300 for this image anyway, if you're working with this texture. You want to keep the brush mode on normal, and we want that opacity to be somewhere between 20 and 30%. Then we're simply going to brush away the areas where the orange popped up. And there we go. It's as simple as that. Now I want to show you one more step. What if you happen to brush away more texture than you intended and you don't like the result? Well, you don't have to go back through the history, and you don't have to use the undo button. Instead, just change the foreground color of your brush to white and change the opacity of your brush to something around half of what you were working with. And then you simply brush back over it to bring back in the texture. So I hope that tip really helps you out when you're working with textures in the different blending modes. In this lesson, the photograph we're using is actually from President Reagan's hometown, and there happens to be a really cute and tasty ice cream parlor there. But anyway, so what we want to do is we want to add some depth to this image. So we're going to do that by starting with Antique Warm. That is from Texture Masters Volume 1. This has a really beautiful edge burn to it, and you're going to really see that pop out in this image as we work through it. And this texture I made using linen fabric and walnut inks. So it has a really great saturation to it. So you want to go ahead and place it in a corner and drag it across. And now we're going to select the Soft Light Blending mode. So you can already start to see that edge working just a little bit, but you're really going to see it with the second texture. This is that 17 Warm that we used before in another lesson. We're going to place it over the top texture so that it becomes the top layer. And now we're going to choose the Color Burn or the Linear Burn, depending on what you like. Either of them give you a really nice finish. This is the Color Burn and this is the Linear Burn. Let's work with Linear Burn, and then let's brighten it up a little bit. Now how's that for depth? This is a photo that I took in my studio of my seashell collection. I really love the way that the background just disappears. We're going to start by applying the Sometimes Cool texture from, I believe, Texture Masters Volume 1. This is going to add a really nice soft aqua hue to the image, which kind of goes with that beachy feel. We're going to go ahead and select the Overlay Blending Mode. Ooh, isn't that color pretty? And now, to grunge things up, we're going to add Morning Mist. Let's go ahead and pull this over, drag it across and place it. Now we want to select the darker color blending mode and reduce the opacity. Then we're going to apply a layer mask again. Change that foreground color to black. Select your brush tool. And we're going to get a really big brush. Okay, that'll work. And let's set that at around 50%. And we're going to brush away this morning mist texture from the seashell because it is our subject and we want it to shine through. We want it to still be crisp. So let's go ahead and increase that opacity and go across that again. Make it a little bit crisper. So this process really adds a beautiful grunge finish. I hope you had a lot of fun learning all about photo textures with me today. I want to share with you a complete package of all the tools you need to continue your learning today. The package includes so many things. The first thing I want to show you is a self-paced course class. This is all about the science of texture. It includes 10 unique lessons, 10 Photoshop screencasts, and 10 before and after lessons so that you can really visually see what is happening. And this course is going to walk you through all of the different blending modes, more than just what we worked with today. And the course includes all the textures you need to complete each lesson. That's 10 large-scale textures. They're 10-inch by 10-inch high-quality JPEG files. And that's just a glimpse at what is in there. I'm also adding a bonus pack of 8 textures from the Masters Volume 1 collection. These are also 10 by 10 inch textures, so you're going to have a huge set to work with so that you can mix in and add as many layers as you want on top of an image. And to really get you started, I'm also including a free trial to Adobe Photoshop. If you're ready to get started with Textures Masters today, why not start with the Texture Science package? Well, thank you for joining me for the Life and Reflection Texture Masters webinar. I hope this has inspired you to take your photos from ordinary to extraordinary.